Oh, yeah.
You guys having a good time? Y'all ready to keep this show rolling, man?
You guys getting started? You guys want some more show? What do you say? This comedy is so damn funny. One of my favorites of all time.
I'm a fan of this man for years.
This brother right here, I love it.
You seen him on the Conan O'Brien show?
He's been seeing the Letterman show.
Countless fucking TV sets.
Tours all over this country.
The new special that came out this year. Put your hands together. Make a lot of noise.
Get it up for my man Ted.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ted Alexandro Show. I am your host, Ted Alexandro, coming to you from an undisclosed location in the northeast of these United States of America. We have a very special show for you today. Trigger warning, it does have, it discusses issues of sexual assault and things of that nature. So just wanted to give a trigger warning so folks are aware of the content. We will be speaking with our special guest. Very honored and thrilled to have Tara Reade on the show today, a former staffer of Senator, at the time, Senator Joe Biden's in the early 90s. Tara Reade was a staffer for Joe Biden and has since accused him of sexually assaulting her in 1993 in a Capitol Hill office. And she is, in fact, one of 8 women who have accused now President Joe Biden of inappropriate touching or sexual assault. And I felt it was important to have Tara Reade on the show. We will not be discussing specifically the graphic details of the assault. I wanted to respect that not make her recount those issues. They've been detailed, and you can certainly find that if you wish to. Katie Halper did an extended interview with Tara Reade that touches on all of those types of details. I wanted to focus more on where Tara Reade is at now, what she has gone through in the aftermath of coming forward, and talk about her journey and her recovery and her healing since the incident and since going public with the accusations. So for me, it's a matter of consistency and not choosing your opportunities to believe women. People were very quick to point out all of the lewd and lascivious things that Donald Trump said and did, but were very quick and eager to not only discount Tara Reade's accusations and her story of having been sexually assaulted by Joe Biden. They just ignored it altogether, or they went even further and attacked her and tried to discredit her and, basically dragged her name through the mud every which way that they could. So it's interesting to see those who would call themselves progressives or left or Democrats or whatever word you want to attach to it. This is an epidemic of the way women are treated in the workplace, treated by men, specifically men in power. But certainly it doesn't have to be limited to that. The environment that we create for women, be it workplace or even just walking down streets, can be dangerous, if not life-threatening, and can traumatize women in ways that changes the trajectory of their life, of their career, and that they then have to heal from that in an ongoing manner for the rest of their lives. So this is something that really should be front and center, and accusations of this sort should be taken seriously always. And they truly were not. And the Democratic Party wanted to discredit and hush her and attack Tara Reade for telling her story. And many, as I said, many people who fancy themselves progressives or fancy themselves on the left, if it's inconvenient and it jeopardizes your goals of attaining power, or your goals of, if it's an impediment to what you're looking to achieve in some way, I think people are all too quick to dismiss women rather than hashtag believe women, and the Me Too movement, obviously, that has centered so much of this discussion. People are, they still pick and choose when it's convenient, when their team will benefit or not from a particular story. So these very credible allegations that I believe, point blank, that Tara Reade talks about being a young staffer for Joe Biden and being sexually assaulted, it's disgusting, and it was given, it was not given the gravity and its due. It was not given its due on the large stage. It was dismissed. She was attacked. Her family was attacked. And it was really just kind of the playbook of what happens when someone comes forward with an inconvenient truth, an inconvenient allegation against someone, particularly someone at the highest levels of power. So to me, it's a real honor to have Tara Reade on the show and to speak with her, to hear her story, to hear where she's at in her journey. And she just put out a new book, Left Out: When the Truth Doesn't Fit In. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I am truly honored and happy to welcome to the show Tara Reade. Okay, Tara Reade, thank you so much, first of all, for making the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it. Our mutual friend, Anthony Zenkis, put us in touch. So thank you so much for making the time to be here.
Well, thank you. And, Anthony Zenkis is a really fine professor of trauma. I know him in that kind of professional setting, that he reached out to me when I was going through this, and he was super supportive. So, and he had mentioned what you did. And then, of course, you and I talked off camera that my brother knew you, because my brother's a comedian, Colin, and played basketball with you.
Say Colin's full name, if you wouldn't mind.
Colin Moulton, yeah. So you can find him at colinmoulton.com. But he, I really feel for you and all comedians right now through the pandemic. I'm just glad everyone's still standing and getting work. So
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a bizarre time for sure.
Yeah.
So that it was cool to have those connections.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of ask you about where you are now. I know that it's been such a journey, and I'm sure one filled with a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns. But where do you find yourself now in your journey of healing, recovery, and advocacy?
Well, what happened to me happened, 2 decades ago. So, I was moving through that, but unfortunately, when I worked for Joe Biden and was, sexually harassed and then assaulted, after coming forward with the sexual harassment, as you know, I was told I wasn't a good fit and forced to resign, and I lost my career. And it was really a difficult time for me. And I ended up being with someone, in an intimate partner relationship and getting married to them, and ended up in a domestic violence situation. And so, I wrote in my book, and where I am with that healing is just kind of on the other side of writing that book, about complex trauma and how, one thing can happen on top of another. Because when you're kind of open and vulnerable, or when someone normalizes violence, sometimes your boundaries aren't that strong. So I wanted to really do two things, actually, besides, the healing aspect of it. I felt the way the media eviscerated me and did the character assassination, I really was concerned about other survivors being able to come forward. It had a chilling effect on anyone coming forward about Biden, for sure, and that was their intent. But beyond that, other survivors. And so I'm hoping that my story, and just, continuing to be moving forward, will make a safer space and more. And, I really appreciate what you did in your comedy. You were one of the few comedians that called out Louis C.K. And, but in a way, it was really tasteful the way you did it, but you made a point. And, as a survivor, that meant a lot. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's an issue that has been so much in the forefront in recent years, obviously, with the Me Too movement and Time's Up. So that, like you said, this happened decades ago, and only recently has this movement coalesced, and yet still we're seeing that change does not happen overnight. Just because there's a movement, there's a hashtag, these things are being elevated. At the same time, as you said, character assassination, being eviscerated by very powerful interests. When someone's running for president, obviously it does not get much more powerful than that.
Right.
So can you talk about those two dynamics, maybe the liberation or the relief of speaking your truth, and then those types of dynamics that where they come after you?
Yeah. I mean, it was really, you were talking about the trauma. I really got re-traumatized. And I talk about that a bit in the book, and in specifics about certain reporters and media that went really after me in a very personal way. I lost everything coming forward. I lost my housing, work, everything, and relationships. And, it put a strain. We were talking about my brother earlier. My brother's been totally supportive, but of course it put a little strain on he was getting called by, press media outlets day and night. And he's a professional in his own field and needs to work and feed his family. And so it was really, it caused a lot of problems the way it was handled. What was really striking was how, Joe Biden's campaign would go out publicly, and certain, surrogate Democrats would come out and say, it's, women should be able to come forward and have a safe space. And they were giving this whole hypocrisy, full of hypocrisy line that it was safe. Well, it wasn't safe. I was getting death threats. Behind the scenes, they were weaponizing social media trolls to go after me. And it went so far as they accused me of not being honest about my education. And I was an expert witness professionally for Monterey County DA about domestic violence. So that brought up all those cases. And I was actually threatened with prison for felony perjury.
Wow.
And so for months, here I am. I've just come out about probably one of the most traumatic events of my life. Dealing with not just Joe Biden, but what he did, but what he said to me after, and then destroying my life, career, basically, to keep me quiet. And then to be threatened with prison and other things. It was really, and then we called a Russian agent, as you know, that was a thing.
Yeah.
And it was a very serious thing. The New York Times reporter told me that every time they would call Joe Biden's campaign, he would simply fax something I said about Russia or Vladimir Putin in response. So at first he was trying to push this whole thing off as a Russian, narrative that they created. Then when it was clear I was actually staff I worked for him and then he couldn't deny it,
2
right?
years, right? 2
Yeah,
years.
yeah. So when I first came forward in 2019 about the sexual harassment and I was coming forward with the whole history, they immediately called me a Russian agent, and that was Isaac Dovier from The Atlantic. And then it just went downhill from there. And, that was really strange. I mean, it led to a lot of family jokes. Because we found humor in it because it was so absurd, but then it wasn't so funny. Like when you're being threatened with prison, I had, I was starting to get monitored, as if I was the threat.
Yeah.
And I was reporting a crime. So I don't, it's been quite a journey. And the effect of weaponizing media, and what most people don't know, is that powerful figures can afford public relations firms. And, according to FEC, Joe Biden's campaign spent $2.2 million on his PR.
Wow.
Basically to make my story go away and the Hunter Biden story to go away.
Right.
And now, that's coming forward, and then Hunter Biden himself is addressing it, and they're spinning it however they choose to spin that. But it was really overwhelming, and I'm still kind of trying to process what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an indictment not only of government, but as you say, media and journalism, whose only objective and goal should really be the truth. And to then essentially, from the Atlantic on down the line, to turn into part of that propaganda machine that you talk about, that PR machine that you talk about, and really abdicate their role as the fourth estate, and to turn you into someone who is the suspect, is
Right.
really it's really an indictment, and I guess it's part and parcel of kind of this patriarchal system of governance, and I mean it pervades all aspects of society for sure. But to think back as a young woman with hopes and dreams, and I'm sure you saw yourself. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the trajectory that you saw yourself on prior to this happening.
Well, before, when I was young, going back to DC, I thought it was the beginning of my career. I was so excited. And Joe Biden at the time was a senator, but he was still very powerful at the time. He was chairman of the judiciary, chairman of the foreign relations. And I was visualizing this career where I would be mentored in that office, right? Maybe not by him directly, but by, being there, it just in and of itself. And it was a shock to be pretty much right from the start objectified. And then, I was in my 20s in that place where you're just trying to please and you're trying to move your career ahead. And I remember someone asked me, why didn't you just push his hand away? Well, when it's your boss and they have their hand on your shoulder and they're rubbing your neck and doing stuff with your hair, I just didn't move. I didn't say anything and I didn't like it. But at the time, I was it injects fear, because if you do, and then when it happened, beyond the trauma of the assault, I remember thinking, this is the end. This is the end of my career. I knew it. In that moment when he was angry and he was rejected, that was that. And someone with that much power, it's daunting.
And you meant it was the end, even regardless of whether you spoke out, just the dynamic had shifted. Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt it. I can't really articulate it. It was more like you feel in your gut, but I don't know if you've been in a position where you've just known when a job's not going to work out or not going to, you just knew, well, that's that.
Many times on stage, Tara. Many times on stage, I'm not prepared, of course, but
no, I know that. Well, and the interesting thing about being a comedian is there is instant feedback, isn't there? So it's quite. I think it's one of the bravest jobs in the world. Actually, I admire you and my brother because it's intense. But it was very clear, that his attitude towards me shifted. And then, of course, I would see him after and he would look straight ahead and not look at me and I wasn't there. Before, he would always like, wink at me or like, I don't know. So, yeah, it was definitely, I realized that, that was the end of that. And for women in the workplace, just because, with sexual harassment and sexual assault, right? They're two different things. But the power and control is still the same. And it's really all about power differentials and power and control. And if we can kind of, as a community, figure out and navigate that, and it's a nuanced conversation. It's not like people have said, why did you post something positive about Joe Biden? Well, Joe Biden was well known. I was in a field of domestic violence advocacy later on. I wasn't going to talk about it publicly then. And what purpose would that have served at that time? I would have, and look what happened when I did speak out. The whole thing is, when someone has that much power, it's really difficult to get your story forward.
Sure. And there's really no right time in the eyes of skeptics anyway. They're going to criticize whether there is no perfect time, it really, the perfect time is when you say it, because you've thought about it and you say it when it's right for you.
Yeah. And it's not like I hated him or something, right? Like I wanted to work for him. I looked up to him. And so it's this world of many things are true at once. Good people can do good things and still do bad things. And I think we live in this sort of world of gladiator, thumbs up, thumbs down, right? But it's not like that. It's just, it's complicated.
It is. Yeah. And yet, I was thinking 3 out of the last 5 United States presidents have had credible accusations ranging from sexual harassment to rape. When you think Clinton, and then Trump and Joe Biden. So
and Bush Sr. had an allegation.
And Bush Sr. as well. That's right. So it is a pervasive problem and a problem that really needs to be addressed. And part of the vetting of these people who are seeking really any position, but certainly the presidency of the United States. And also, I'm sure, it's not lost on you, but the ongoing accusations against Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York.
Right.
I think Lindsey Boylan was the former staffer who first spoke out against him. And I'm sure you're seeing similarities in the trajectory there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think Lindsey Boylan's amazing and courageous. I like the fact she has not lost her career. She is moving forward with her. She just got endorsed today, I saw, which was good by another labor organization or something. So, but a 10th person came forward about being actually assaulted, a former staffer of Cuomo. So, yeah, I mean, there's now 10, and 15,000 people that died in nursing homes. Because of some of his policies and then him covering it up. Like, I just think, going back to what you said, it's American rape culture. We're in a rape culture. We need to stop, making politicians celebrities and putting them up on a pedestal. They're human beings. They're very, and we just need to hold them accountable. And if they do engage in that kind of behavior, it needs to be investigated properly. I guess I would ask you, because, the Louis C.K. thing was really, and like Bill Cosby, these are 2 beloved comedians, right? People like them. And Joe Biden, kind of the same thing. People wanted to like him because they didn't want Trump. What is your take on that? Just looking at that, of seeing people come forward about their behavior when they're not in the public eye, but behind closed doors, or not even in Louis C.K.'s, he did it at work, so I guess. But what is your take on that? I saw your routine about it, but what, as a professional male, what do you think?
Well, I guess there were a lot of similar dynamics in terms of these were men in Cosby and Louis C.K. who were truly at the top of their field. I mean, Cosby, legend, and Louis C.K. certainly on that track. Nobody bigger, in that decade. And I had even opened for him for a time, so I had a personal. I traveled around the country with him.
Wow!
Yeah. So there was a sense of betrayal and a sense of anger, disappointment at the
Mhm.
act itself, and at the way it was handled in the aftermath. Covering it up for the better part of a decade. So
Right.
I truly felt, like my role, and my wife has a big part of this as well in my own evolution as a man, as a human being.
Mhm.
um, I felt, I kind of wrote the routine that you're referencing
Mhm.
4 o'clock in the morning one night when I just woke up, and I just couldn't get to sleep, and I really felt compelled to get it all out. I didn't even know, if it would ever see the light of day, but I really
Right.
did. I felt compelled to get those things out. And
Mhm.
as I say, in talking it through with my wife and thinking it over, because it was not something I did lightly, I decided to do
Yeah.
it at the cellar and perform that routine, and then further to put it out on YouTube, and it kind of took on a life of its own. But yeah, it was just, I guess, kind of operating from the desire to advocate for people like yourself, and to, as a male, for my fellow comedians, and
Mhm.
specifically the women, but obviously all comedians, the type of workspace that we want and the type of world that we want.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so much of culture, whether it's the culture of governance that you came up through, police culture, we see it oftentimes,
Mhm.
and I think it's just human nature. There's
Yeah.
It's too easy to stay silent, so to your question, yeah, that was my motivation, like a desire to not be quiet and not be complicit, really.
Yeah, because people talk about cancel culture, they refer to that, and I don't think that's the intent with holding people accountable. I think it's trying an understanding or trying to get through it. Do you know how much it would have meant to me if Joe Biden would have said, "I'm sorry,"
Sure.
or if he would have acknowledged, "I made a mistake, this happened, I want to somehow make this right." How much, that would have meant so much to me as a young woman. It may have changed the trajectory of my life if that had happened, right? It shouldn't have happened at all. But what I'm saying is, restorative justice is a funny thing. It doesn't have to come through the courts. I mean, restorative justice can happen in other ways. And I guess it's really hard when people that we look up to and admire that are creative, geniuses, or really powerful performers or powerful politicians, it's hard to just vilify them, right? And you don't want to do that. So I think what people did with me coming forward, the history, they didn't know me, I didn't matter, I wasn't a public figure, just eviscerate her, like, she's a monster, she's wrong, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, the Politico headline, manipulative, deceitful user was the headline.
Yeah, it's almost out of a playbook.
Goodness.
Yeah, and in essence, like, they have no problem, quote unquote, canceling you for having the audacity
No.
to speak out, right? So it's just,
Right.
it's really undergirded again by that patriarchal system of, like, how
Yeah.
dare you question one of our anointed, be it Kanye,
Exactly.
Louis, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something very backwards about that. So if you could talk a little bit more about your book, Left Out. I don't think we've said the title yet. Left Out: When the Truth Doesn't Fit In.
I will even do a shameless
Please.
thing where I happen to have it. So what it looks like, and you see there's a horse on there. I'm leaning on a horse.
Oh, yes.
And I have an adopted horse named Charm. So yeah. And a funny thing about that is my brother, this is a brother story, he always said his daughters would not be into horses, because I was always very into horses all his life. He said, well, my daughter's not going to be into horses. Guess what? One of his daughter's first words was horse. She's completely horse obsessed. His other daughter is a hunter jumper, so loves it. I know.
They must love their aunt as well.
Yeah. It took one horse lesson.
Oh, that's great. That's right.
Yeah. But anyway.
So horses have been a big part of your life, and I'm assuming.
And healing.
You're healing. Yeah.
Yeah. A very big part of healing. I mean, horses. there's equine therapy. I'd highly recommend it for people that are interested in animals. There's also, dogs and cats that help with that too, and other pets. But horses have a special healing capacity when you've gone through trauma. I actually volunteered at a place that helped veterans with PTSD. There's something about their sympathetic system that matches ours, because theirs is larger and calms us naturally. And so it doesn't necessarily mean riding. Sometimes it's just grooming a horse or being around their energy. But I really found it. So that's why they're kind of prominently featured, because part of my healing was through horses and continues to be. Yeah. But the book was written recently, and I talk about my childhood a bit. And, I did come from an abusive home, and my father was quite abusive, and both our parents had problems with, alcoholism. So, I discussed that pretty frankly. And I think that it lowered my boundaries in many ways, and I was more open to situations I might not have been, and Joe Biden being one of them. Yeah. So, and I think predators or people that they sense that, right? Sure. They can spot it. And I'm not trying to blame myself, but what I'm trying to say, or any other survivor, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes, instead of reacting a certain way, my boundaries were already down. Like, I was already frightened. I didn't have support like other people did. So
sure. I mean, even had you had the perfect quote unquote Cosby show, you're still entering the halls of power, and you're a young woman, and the power dynamics, but then exacerbated by coming from that situation, I'm sure. So I guess in a weird way, it's been an opportunity, and you clearly you've taken that opportunity for growth and introspection, and contextualizing all of the things that led up to that moment, and the healing that has transpired since. And I'm guessing this book is part of that journey to pass that along, and the ownership that you claim of this moment in your life, this situation in your life, I'm sure is helping to heal so many other people.
Well, thank you for saying that. I hope so. I hope that people read this book and get, that sense, because there are funny moments and, absurd moments that I write about. So, there are parts that are, light, and parts that are, tougher. Like, I do write about the assault itself. But at the end, I also give a list of resources and survivor-founded resources. So a lot of these resources were founded by survivors, like the Weinstein survivors. One of the big support systems that I got was from some of the silence breakers, Louis Ed Geis, Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan has been just phenomenal. She has been she wrote the foreword to my book, and she has been just right there with me. She checks in with me. She's such a courageous and beautiful soul. She really is. And I love listening to her speak, and I love her energy and her ability to keep creating really good projects. Lou Godbold was another silence breaker who's also now a trauma expert. So for all the negative things that happened.
Sorry to interrupt. You said silence breaker. Is that like a group that exists, or you just mean in terms of like people that spoke out? I'm not familiar with that phrase, silence.
Silence breakers are some of the Weinstein survivors. They call them silence breakers, so they don't always have to be called Weinstein survivor. You know what I mean? It's just kind of, Someone actually lumped me in the group with silence breakers, but I kind of think of them as the Weinstein survivors, a group of the group of women that kind of have been trying to, bring forward this conversation collectively. I want to reflect back on something that you said that's really important about Me Too. You said something about a hashtag, and you're absolutely right. I think Believe Women, Me Too, all of it became like this sort of catchphrase or hashtag, and really devalued like Tarana Burke founded Me Too to raise up young Black women's voices that were being marginalized when they couldn't get, their stories forward about rape and, sexual assault and sexual harassment. And then that movement sort of got hijacked, during the Kavanaugh hearings by Democrats and by Alyssa Milano. And Rose McGowan really, she just, really spoke out about Alyssa Milano and was really the only person that could really just put her in her place, and said how wrong that was. Because the Me Too movement isn't a movement if it just becomes a hashtag and political roadkill, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And it is interesting, the kind of the opportunism of the powerful to even co-opt that, or as you said, for Biden to have surrogates that paint him a certain way, or paint him as a friend to women, so it, as you say, it is complicated, and there are many layers to it, and powerful, the machine that has access to, as you said, millions and PR and stuff. They're the one who their voices are loudest and get the biggest platforms.
Sure.
So yeah, that makes it quite a task to pierce through. But I really believe that you're doing it, and you're doing it with dignity and grace and consistency, and also as you've displayed tonight, with good humor, because you are a full human being, and you bring all of that to your advocacy, and I'm sure to your book as well, and the stories that you tell.
Yeah, and one of the things, the feedback that I got when I was coming forward from some survivors that would reach out to me privately, they said, "Look, I'm afraid to publicly support you, but just so you know, I'm here, but I'm afraid of getting trolled, and you're really brave to come forward because I have like this or this in my past, and I wouldn't be able to." And, in the book, I talk frankly about how social media trolls displayed my bankruptcy. They displayed my divorce papers. I had no privacy. I was under this weird microscope and just sort of taken apart.
Yeah.
And I just want people to not be ashamed of who they are. Like, class shaming just didn't work with me. It's like, okay, you're a Democrat, and you're gonna class shame New York Times because what did they write? I was too poor to afford law books, so I had to borrow some. Like that's a bad thing. That's a character flaw. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of people struggling, and it's okay to go to law school and struggle through. And I made it, and I graduated. Right. But yeah, it's really interesting how the Democratic, that hypocrisy exists. And going back to something else you said about Biden, this might be cynical of me, but I'm wondering, he surrounds himself with this view that he's this protector of women's rights, and with women that champion that. But in his private, that was not my experience. And I know other people where it was an open secret. He was very misogynistic. It was not who he was. It's just an image, and it's optics. And that's almost more dangerous. It's like, that wolf with sheep's clothing. Because with Trump, you know who he is. He's an asshole. He's awful, right? And he's a misogynistic pig. And you know who he is because he says who he is. Yeah. But with Biden, it's all this smoke and mirrors. Yeah. And that's worse.
No, I agree. That's why, it's upsetting. And when the media kind of walks lockstep with that, and then attacks you on top of it. So just maybe kind of in closing, so having written the book now, was that a cathartic experience for you? And where do you see like these kind of years ahead going for you in terms of the work that you're doing?
I want to keep doing creative work, so I'll do more writing. And I'd also like to, help with survivors. And I'd like to help with legislation that changes some things, like ends the statute of limitations on reporting. There's a slush fund in Congress that was used to silence people, to not get them to come forward. So it was taxpayer money actually used so we need to get rid of that. And, there's things to do. So I want to move on and heal and help others. And that's really where I'll be writing. And, maybe you'll see me in the audience of one of your shows or my brother's shows.
That'll be nice. Maybe we'll be on the same bill together.
Well, I'm just looking forward to live comedy again. It'll be good to laugh. I think we all need to laugh and feel good again, right?
That would be nice. That would be nice to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tara, I'm so appreciative of you. And as I said, the grace with which you are telling your story and helping others, because I think it's quite a legacy that you're building and that you will leave behind as an example to help many other people.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're
You
very
take
welcome.
care.
Okay. Hope to see you down the road.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you again to Tara Reade. Her book is Left Out: When the Truth Doesn't Fit In. And I thank her again for making the time to come on the show and talk about her story and her journey. Thank you, Tara Reade. And thank you, everyone, for watching. We do appreciate it. If you wish to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/Ted Alexandro. Lots of fun stuff there, bonus content, bonus episodes, of course, the Ted Alexandro Comedy Academy. And you can support the show at rockfin.com/Ted Alexandro. The show will be posted there as well. And there is both free and premium content. If you wish to see the premium content, that is $9.99 a month. But either way, please do go to rockfin.com/Ted Alexandro and follow me there because I will be posting more and more stuff at Rockfin because, as I've said, it's more of a creator-centric platform where you can earn money and you can kind of share in the growth of the platform as opposed to getting lost in the desert of YouTube and their algorithms. So more and more I will be shifting. I'll still post clips and stuff like that on YouTube, but over time I'm going to be shifting the show and more of my content over to rockfin.com/Ted Alexandro. Thank you again, everyone. And thank you to our executive producer extraordinaire. She rules with an iron fist, but always a heart of gold. Third eye squeegeed clean. She is Madeline Geraldine. I love you very much. And that baby is knocking on the door. And we thank our music maestro, Pro DLC. He has just released season 7. So listen to his latest album, Season 7, and the preceding 6 seasons as well, wherever you stream your music. Pro DLC. And we thank our producer emeritus, the man with the plan. He's always lurking in the shadows. He's always at the ready. Thank you, Matthew L. Weiss.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Be well. And once again, with our baby expected basically any day now, my schedule will be fluid. I don't know if there will be an episode next week. I don't know what the schedule will be like, but there will be episodes coming up. But please be patient, as I'm not sure exactly what my schedule will be, but these are exciting times, and I thank you for your understanding. Till next time.